Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Creating Wealth. I'm Marjorie Roman, and we have the pleasure of learning from the one and only Robert G. Allen. Thank you so much, Robert.
Hey, everybody. Let's make some money today, shall we?
Oh, yes, let's do it. And today we're going to talk about some of the most important factors that we should be looking at when we are ready to invest on a real estate property. So, for example, what about the location? How do you know if the location of these properties is good enough for you to invest on it?
Location, location, location. That's what they tell you need to have in order to have a good real estate deal. Mm-hmm. And in most cases, that's true. For a beginner, that's probably really true because you are just learning the techniques. And so buying a property in the wrong neighborhood probably would be kind of dangerous for you. But eventually, any property, anywhere, at any price is the right deal. Any property, as long as it has one characteristic, that the seller is highly motivated to sell and therefore is more flexible and they're more willing to go outside the norm. The norm is find a strong buyer, good cash, good credit, good collateral, good cash flow, sell that property in a good location to that kind of buyer. And that's the smart way to invest in real estate. Why? Because it's safer. And because if you ever want to sell it again, there'll be lots of demand for it. But I've been learning recently techniques that I've told my students never to buy.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, when we do our little analysis on the 5 areas of analysis on every real estate deal, you probably see this in one of my previous podcasts, but you know, it's location, condition of the property, the condition of the seller, highly motivated seller,
That's right.
the price, and the financing. And those are 5 areas of analysis that you need to have answers on in order for you to even consider buying it. So you showed me one today, which was location, location, location. And in my analysis, when I give all 5 of those a score, I say the highest score you can get on any one of those 5 areas would be 3. You know, 1 would be really low. 2 would be okay. 3 would be, yeah, that's good. If it's a 3, that's good. You know, if it says it doesn't require any fix up and no more investment for a renter to move in, that's a 3. You know, if the seller's highly motivated to sell, that's a 3. You know, so if I have all 3s, that's 15. But when it comes to location, I give it a lower score. If it's a bad location, I give it a 0.
Oh, wow.
In other words, I take away a point for a bad location. Why do I do that? Because I want my readers to be safe. I don't want them to make bad decisions by buying in the wrong neighborhoods. However, when you've done this a few times, when you're
a little more seasoned.
Exactly, a little more experienced, you can buy properties in the worst neighborhoods. Now, in fact, most of the properties that are in the worst neighborhoods are owned by investors.
Oh, wow.
You know, the people who live there can't afford them. Somebody bought them and are renting them out to renters. Now, there's a real trick technique, whereas you could literally find a property that's boarded up, that's vacant, that's empty, that nobody wants, and put a sign on it. Put a sign on it that says, if anybody is interested in buying this property, call me. Well, you don't own it.
That's true.
How can you do that? Well,
is it even legal though?
And my friend of mine who does this has done this maybe a million times, with his students all around the country, has never had a problem with that. Because if it's vacant, they really don't care. What, you put your sign on it? They don't want it. You look at it. You already realize they don't want it. But now people drive by and they see the sign. And they call you and they say, hey, what's your price? You say, well, what would you offer me? This is really not, you don't have to say, I own this. You can just say, myself and my team are here in the area. We're looking for properties. And this is one we're interested in. We were interested in. You don't even have to say you own it.
Oh,
but you don't tell them you don't own it, but you just don't tell them that you do, and they call you and they say, and then you skip trace. That means you track down the owner of that property. And there are a lot of ways of doing that. Maybe one day we'll talk about how do I find the owner of a property who where it's vacant? How do I track them down? Because there are techniques for doing that. We won't talk about that today. But anyway, when you track them down, you just say, I see you're not all that interested in this property. What kind of cash offer would you be interested in? And they give you a number. Mm-hmm. And now when anybody ever calls you about saying, how much do you want for your property? Mm-hmm. You ask them, how much would you be willing to pay?
That's right.
And suppose your seller said $100,000 and your buyer said $150,000.
You already made $50,000.
Exactly.
Profit.
You would say, okay, let's close. We'll have a double escrow. I'll take your $150,000 in cash and give $100 of it to the seller in the closing, and they walk away with cash and they're happy. It's what they wanted. Mm-hmm. You have $50,000 left over that goes into your bank account. In other words, you can make profit from a property in the worst area of your city without even owning it, without putting a down payment, without having good credit, without having cash or cash flow or even a job. You could put a sign on properties like that. So bottom line is there's no bad location. There's just bad strategy. A friend of mine is a hiker, and I'm a fair weather hiker. So I don't want to hike in the bad weather. If it's raining, I don't want to hike. She's a hiker. Oh, wow. And so she says, there is no bad weather. There's only bad equipment.
Ooh. And it's the same with real estate.
There is no bad time to buy. There is only bad strategy. Mm-hmm. There's no bad place to buy. There is only bad strategy. Exactly. And therefore, every time as the market goes up and down, there's different strategies for different times. There's different strategies for different locations. Mm-hmm. There's different strategies for different kinds of real estate. You know, we've been talking about single-family homes and small apartment buildings, but there are all kinds of other types of real estate. There's no bad type of real estate. It could be commercial. It could be renting a storage unit. It could be vacant ground. There's no bad type of real estate. There's just bad strategy. And so what I teach is good strategy. I show you how, using creative financing techniques, how to buy anything, anywhere, at any time, and make money from it.
That is true. Yeah, because like the fact that it's a bad quote unquote location doesn't mean that you have to keep it. You can easily flip it, as you mentioned.
Exactly.
That example. Now, what about the price? You said that that's another of the things that you look at
when you're
evaluating a property. What about the price? How do you know if the price is right for the property? Right now, we have changing prices. People keep asking for more money than what the property actually is worth of. But how do you know if the price of a property is the right one?
People pay for a property what it's worth at that current time. Mm-hmm. As we saw in the previous couple of years, people were overpaying because there was too much competition. Well, the competition is dying, and that means there's not going to be a lot of competition any longer. And therefore, the sellers are going to have a harder time selling. The time from listing it to actually selling it is now going up all across the country. It's going up from a few days to a few months. Oh, yeah. And the longer it goes, the more desperate the sellers get. Mm-hmm. Because there's a real secret about real estate. The best thing about real estate is the worst thing about real estate. The best thing is that it's illiquid. And the worst thing is it's illiquid. What I mean by that is you can't sell it and get immediate cash when the market's soft. And therefore, the best thing, because it's illiquid, that means we find highly motivated sellers. And therefore, we want the real estate to be illiquid. It means nobody is buying it. Nobody's paying cash for it. But if the seller is willing to take our financing, our special terms, then great. Then we get it without having liquidity. And most of us don't have liquidity. What's liquidity? It's another word for money. It's another word for cash. And if you don't have any liquidity, then you have to find a property where the seller needs to sell it without cash. So, like I said, the best thing about real estate, it's illiquid. That means it forces the seller to be flexible. And the worst thing about real estate is illiquid, even for you. When you get to go sell it to somebody else, it's going to be illiquid for you too. So you have to plan for that. If you give yourself time enough, you can get the right price. Eventually someone will pay you cash for it. But if you want it immediately, you have to plan, right?
That is true. So what is a good range that you would say that you are looking for in the case of a property? So for example, do you buy below the market, and how much of a percentage?
There is no wrong price.
Whoa.
There is no wrong price to be investing in real estate. There's just a wrong strategy. Okay. So Robert, but you've always taught you should never buy property that's retail or above, right? You don't want to pay retail. That's a game that is a fool's game. Is it possible to make money when you're paying more than what it's worth, as some people did? Well, some of those people were fools. They were fighting for the right price. They increased their price. They paid more than it was actually worth. And now the prices are declining. Some of those properties that were bought in the last couple of years are now underwater, meaning their values are lower than what the mortgages are, or what a person paid for it. And in 2008, the whole world was underwater. Values were below what the mortgages were. That's why a lot of these mortgages went back and were foreclosed on and didn't cause the economy to have such a problem. So when you're buying, if there's no wrong time, there's no wrong place, there's no wrong price. There's only the wrong strategy. So could I pay more for it? Yes. As I explained to you a little earlier, maybe you know that it's going to increase in value when the zoning gets changed. Maybe you know by fixing it up in value, you can increase its value dramatically. Therefore, you paid a little too much for it now, but when it's fixed up, it's worth much more. Maybe they're going to add a bedroom to it. Maybe they're going to buy some land next door to it so they can expand it into something bigger. Maybe there's a mall that's just going in. And what I'm trying to say is maybe there are times when you can pay more than its retail price. Generally speaking, though, I've always said, never pay retail. Because if the market shifts, as it shifted in the last few months, it's shifted, and we see it all over the place. And some of those people who bought only months ago are now wishing they had not bought because they paid too much.
But they immediately turned into don't wanters
That's
because
right.
they have a huge debt.
We want to talk to those people. Exactly. They bought wrong. They used the wrong strategy. We buy right. We use the right strategy.
That's true.
Exactly. So generally speaking, yeah, you never want to pay retail because as a beginner, you don't want to get caught holding the bag, as they say. You want to make money the day you buy it. That means you want to have equity in that property the day you buy it. And using the nothing down techniques, there are just all kinds of ways of doing that. Whereas you buy it low and you can refinance it high, you can fix it up higher, you can just flip the contract higher, you can sell the property that's adjacent to it or that you own, that you flip that. I could go on and on and on as I have. The bottom line is, price is, generally speaking, you're wise. But if you know that the value can be increased dramatically, you'd be willing to do that. And you'd be the smart investor where all these other speculators who paid too much for the properties, they're going to get left holding the bag and they're going to be don't wanters. And frankly, I probably won't want to buy them. If the mortgages are too high and the monthly payments are too high, the price is, too high just to bail them out of their problem. I don't bail people out of their problems. I want to solve my own problem, which is profit. I want to make profit. I'm an investor. The sellers, they were stupid. They were stupid. They bought property at the wrong price at the wrong time, using the wrong strategy. Sorry.
That's true.
Get over it. Figure it out. Learn my strategies. If that's you, if you're the person who speculated and real estate's where it's at, then you've got to do something about it. You've got to buy properties that are profitable for you.
That's true.
And so if you don't do that, you'll get holding the bag. And sorry, that doesn't work. Don't do that.
Yeah, because then again, in the game of real estate, we want to make sure that it's a win-win situation, not a win for the seller and a loss for you. So make sure that you buy smart. Evaluate your property before you even buy it so you can get the best deal. We're going to see you on the next episode. And thank you so much again, Bob. We're going to see you later.
See you, everybody.
Bye-bye.